with you this day, and a warm welcome to you as always from all of us here at Powerscourt with Kilbride in the glorious sunshine of the Rectory Garden. But first, as we come into God's presence, or indeed we become aware of that eternal presence with us today, let's just pause for a moment together now in silence as we acknowledge that presence.
A reading from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verses 38 to 42. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he had to say. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and she asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her."
Throughout the centuries, Martha and Mary in that little house in Bethany have been typecast. Mary, and Jesus says it himself, has found the better way by sitting at his feet and listening and absorbing every word that he says. But let's take a little look at Martha this morning in the eyes of Father Lawrence Freeman, a new refreshing look at this rather remarkable person. Martha is a multitasker. Many preachers and theologians have cast her into the kitchen, but there really isn't that much mention of kitchen rather than service. And you can imagine that Martha could very easily have been a type of an administrative person in Jesus' followers. She is possibly the person who makes sure everybody is present and correct, everybody's paid their dues, everybody has what they need. We all need a Martha, an amazing multitasker of a person. However, Martha has become distracted, and she comes upon Jesus, and there are very few people in Scripture who tell Jesus what to do. Father Lawrence describes her as a domestic terrorist. She comes upon him and actually tells him, "Tell Mary to give me a hand." Just let's reflect on Martha's relationship with Jesus. The last time in Scripture that Martha has seen Jesus has been when he raised Lazarus from the dead. And you remember that it's Martha who goes out on the road to meet him before he gets to the house and basically says to him, "Lord, if you had been earlier, if you had been here a few days earlier, he wouldn't have died." But what she's really saying is that she believes that he is the Messiah. She's right up there with the likes of St. Peter and Paul. She absolutely knows who he is, and she absolutely believes in him. But get this as well, she is so direct and honest with him. They have what I would call a very true relationship. Martha is exhibiting absolute signs of stress. She is distracted, she's lonely, she's isolated, she's fragmented, she has lost her sense of self, she's angry, and she's taking that anger out on an innocent bystander. Pause for a moment and see, have there been moments in your lives, or are there moments in your daily lives where you can feel like this? This is very human, and it's also, unfortunately, very much part of our lives today. In our society today, we're all fully aware of the causes of ill health and disease, quite often from stress. We might even have to take time off work as a result of it. It might interrupt our career or disrupt our family life. But let's not forget today that the bottom line is that Martha is suffering. And so Jesus' reaction to her is one of compassion. Now, as we think of stress in our own lives and we think of the Christ's reaction, let's have a look at the three parts of what he does to assist her. The first part is he calls her back to herself. Martha, Martha. By the use of her name, he is grounding her back into herself again. He's clicking her back out of her stress and bringing her back home to herself again. The second thing that he does is, as any good friend would, according to Father Lawrence, he's held a mirror up to her. He says, you are distracted. Your life is dismantled a little. It is... And then finally, Jesus reminds Martha of what Mary is doing. She has chosen the better thing, he says. He doesn't really define it any more than that, but leaves it up to us to define what that better thing might be. But we do understand that her silence and stillness and her listening, Mary's that is the better thing. I want to offer you a perspective this morning to take away from this little service. Perhaps Martha and Mary are not representative of two individual people, but perhaps they are both parts of the human soul. There is the doing and there is the being. The doing is all the things that we need to do. It's the extroverted part of ourselves that needs to socialise, to hold down a job, to do whatever is required of us in this life. But the being is the connecting with ourselves. It is who we were when we came in. It's who we'll be when we go out of this world. And sometimes, as we often say in this square, it gets lost. It seems to me that Jesus is saying to us this morning that if your being is right, if you connect and reconnect with yourself through the stillness of being, and particularly with Him, well then all of the doing that we need to do will be done in a far more peaceable way, possibly in a far more efficient way if we walk with Him in the doing of this.